Well, it'd be a major impact, and I think if you look at Governor Bevin's letter that he sent to the General Assembly a couple weeks ago, plus the veto letter, he explicitly stated how important these agencies are to our state and that their services are vital and they can't lapse. And so that's why it's so important that our legislature reach a solution that is viable for them. My office has put out information about what that would look like. Up to 41 of our health departments will close their doors in the next 12 months after July 1 of this year if we don't get a plan implemented. Following that, it would be 22 the next year, so over half our state's health departments could close their doors unless there's significant change made.
Welcome back to the show. We recently sat down with Kentucky State Representative James Tipton, who sponsored House Bill 358, the pension relief bill that Governor Matt Bevin has since vetoed. Here's the first part of our conversation with the representative. Representative Tipton, welcome to In Focus Kentucky.
Thank you, Mario.
And first, what we'll do is we'll start with you discussing the intent of House Bill 358, what the goal was originally with that bill before,
Sure.
and then we'll kind of transition
Sure.
into the next step.
My involvement in this issue started when leadership asked me to work with the universities. It was primarily our 6 regional universities. University of Kentucky, University of Louisville are not in our pension system. So it was our 6 regional universities, our Kentucky Community Technical College system, and also a group called KSLIC, the Kentucky Higher Education Student Loan Corporation. And their pension obligation is a huge burden, and it's a growing burden. And they came to me and said, we need certainty. We need a plan where we can have certainty about what our pension obligation will be. So we offered up the Regional House Bill 358 was designed to allow them to pay off their unfunded liability in installment payments over a period of time. We got that through the House with 76 votes, had bipartisan support. Went to the Senate. The Senate made changes to the legislation. They added the rest of the qualified entities into the bill, total of 118. There were some changes they made that some of our House members had difficulty with. They heard from especially their health departments back in their local communities. So we did not concur on that legislation that they sent over. We wound up going to a conference, actually a free conference committee report. The final version of House Bill 358 passed very late on the last night of session from that conference committee report. The governor did veto that legislation. I have been in discussion with some of his staff, actually the last 2 days, talking about what their issues were, what their concerns were, and where their ideas are going forward. So those discussions are ongoing, but it is critical that we get legislation passed prior to July 1, 2019, because in that legislation was a freeze for these retirement contribution rate, 49%. Without this change, it would go to 84%. I think there was a recent article in the Lexington Herald Leader that said there would be many of these health departments that would be forced to close their doors if we don't provide this temporary 1-year freeze. So it's important that we move forward on this.
And were you surprised at all when that veto did come together, or were you?
I was a little surprised. I had talked to the administration and I had shared some of my concerns, and I had made a commitment to come back in 2020. And we come back in session in 2020 and try and work these concerns out and make some changes to it. I felt like that we would have the opportunity at that time to make those changes. However, the governor made his decision to go ahead and veto the legislation, so here we are.
Do you anticipate with a special session that this could be cleaned up, if you will, some of the wording in the particular bill, or is it something that you think needs additional time, maybe in 2020?
I think I'm optimistic that we can get this done in a special session. Again, the key situation is for these 118 entities, our universities, they're already budgeted based on expecting a contribution rate of 49%. Without this legislation, July 1st, their contribution rate is going to increase about 60% to the 84%. That's going to put a drastic hurt on them as far as their finances as well as these other entities. So it's vital that we do pass legislation. I know that one of the concerns with the Senate is they did not want to freeze the rate for 1 more year without some type of fix in place. And I don't believe there is any support whatsoever to freeze this rate past one additional year. We have to come up with some resolutions on how to move forward to resolve this issue. And there are no good answers. This is a serious issue with serious problems, and there are no good answers. Ultimately, it's going to wind up costing the taxpayers of Kentucky more money to support these entities one way or another.
Stay with us as we bring you more of our conversation with Kentucky State Representative James Tipton. That's coming up after a look at your latest Weather on the Ones forecast.